Hello everybody, welcome to one more video on the channel. In today's video, I want to talk about difficulty in having a social life. Now, I'm talking about two types of difficulty. I want to include people who actually desire connection and they want to have friends, they would like to have people in their lives, but they have such low self-esteem and they feel so inadequate and like there's something defective that they've got. Like they don't quite fit into the human family. They're excluded in exile. So they don't know how to actually socialize. They don't have the skills and they're completely scared that if they try, they're going to be rejected, abandoned, made fun of, and that people are going to be able to tell how weird and different they are. I am also talking about people who actually don't identify within themselves any desire to have people in their lives at all. They love to isolate themselves, and when they think about relationships, they get tired because it seems like so much work and so much effort that they prefer to avoid all this effort and basically just exist in isolation, where they will bond with and interact with their hobbies, their rituals, and maybe people online or even pets, right? Because these are safer little beings to socialize with. Now, whether you fit into the first category or the second category, I want to use this video to shed some light on why you might feel this way about socializing. And I also want to give you some practical tips for getting started with socialization when you don't have the skills, taking into consideration some characteristics that you might have. So the reason that I want to do this video is because throughout my life I had some serious issues with people. I was actually both people that I just described. There was a part of me that deeply longed for connection, but I was so scared that no one was going to see me as someone that was normal enough to have connection with, that I became completely passive and dependent on other people making a move, on getting in touch, and obviously that didn't help because I just ended up really lonely and in isolation for many years. But there was also another part of me that was like, oh my God, why do I have to socialize? When I socialize, I have to take into consideration what other people want, other people's schedules, other people's preferences, and I'm so used to being all by myself with my 8 cats. I just want to, have my routines, my rituals. I feel nice and safe here and I can entertain myself. Now, the result of these different parts of me is basically that I exiled myself within my mind. And as I spent a lot of time there in my mind, daydreaming, right? And in isolation, I started feeling disconnected from reality. I felt derealization, which is the impression that there's a thick pane of glass between you and reality. It's almost as if the world isn't real. Derealization, as well as depersonalization, are defense mechanisms our brain activates when we experience tremendous amounts of stress and anxiety. It does this by kind of dissociating the brain from the body, and it creates really weird perception of reality. Whereas in derealization, you feel that the world is not really real, or that it's super far away from you. Like I felt like I was here and there was a cell phone right in front of me, but it was almost as if when I touched the cell phone, I couldn't actually feel it. I wasn't sure that the world was real. And in depersonalization, you have that impression that your sense of self has been stolen. The proverbial inner void, like there's nothing there. You might have the impression that you're kind of like the Walking Dead, half alive, or just dead but not really physically dead, kind of like a ghost in a shell, right? A ghost in a body. And I suffer from derealization for many, many years. And when you are in isolation, whether you want to socialize or not, you start losing touch with reality. The human brain is made in such a way that we thrive in communities. And relax now, I'm not telling you that you have to be super sociable. Before you turn off this video and go off to another video, I'm not going to tell you to do things that are completely against what would make you feel safe. I mean, not totally. You're going to have to leave your comfort zone, okay? But I will give you some tips about how you can, with your fears, be it because it's boring and it's too much effort to socialize, or because no one's going to accept you, I'm going to give you some tips for accepting yourself and finding ways that you can actually get that human contact so that you can put an end to derealization and depersonalization. Not that this is just the only thing that could be causing it, but you can feel connected to reality again, and like there's an actual place for you in the physical world. So first and foremost, I want to give you some insight as to why we might have these different parts of us that have a hard time socializing. Well, many things can contribute to this, but what we do know is that it's oftentimes got to do with the way you were raised. And I'm going to give you some examples of different ways of being raised that might actually make you feel like the world is not a safe place for you to be, and it's not really safe for you to socialize, so you're just gonna isolate yourself, withdraw into your inner world, and live there till you die. One of the things is having abusive parents. Abusive, neglectful, overprotective parents, or absent parents, or parents who are drug addicts. What this creates is a first contact with the world that the child deems unsafe. What do I mean by that? Well, in many videos I like to describe our consciousness as a little ball of light, like a star, the sun. It's this ball of energy, and it extends outwards, and the little rays of extension are expressions of that star's self. So when a baby is born, it doesn't realize that it is in the center of the universe, because babies are narcissistic. They don't understand that they are one physical body that is separate from other physical bodies, and that there's many people in the world. They believe, because they're pure consciousness, that everything is them, everything is an extension of them. As they interact with their caretaker, which is generally the mom, it's almost as if they throw their little rays of sunlight outwards, and if these rays are well received in a non-intrusive, non-judgmental, responsive, and loving way, then this little ball of light that just came onto planet Earth and is not used to anything yet, much less its physical existence. Babies actually spend some time getting used to the fact that they have a physical body, right? If these little rays of self-expression were not well received, what that ball of pure light and consciousness might conclude is that the world outside of itself is not safe. Now, it is absolutely natural for children to be quite narcissistic, for babies and young children to be quite narcissistic, and they're supposed to be this way, because it takes tremendous energy for babies and small children to actually get used to their physical existence on Earth. So there's lots of new connections that are happening in their brain. They are growing so fast. Their brain is really growing, is developing really fast. They are getting used to their physical body. They're getting used to processes that happen inside themselves. They're learning the difference between me and the other. They are getting used to their internal fantasy world that starts interacting with the outer world by introjecting bits and pieces of the outer world. It's just a whole lot of work for baby. So baby needs to be narcissistic in the sense that there needs to be a bubble, a safe bubble in which baby can exist, so that he doesn't have to use his energy for other things, just for developing the brain and the body and all of those things. Now, if a baby can be quite narcissistic in this protective magical bubble, eventually what the baby will learn to do is to let go of mommy and feel safe enough to talk to other people or interact with other people, interact with other kids. At a certain point in time, the baby's going to be comfortable enough sharing its toys with other kids, because this is not something that most kids do naturally in the beginning. Why? Because they're narcissistic, right? Now, if there's some trauma during this period of time where the baby is growing up and learning that he's one individual amongst many individuals in a world that is physical, and that he's not the center of the universe. If there's some trauma in this period of time where the baby is going from just being this ball of consciousness to actually being a physical individual existence on planet Earth, what this being might come to the conclusion to is that it's a hell of a lot safer to withdraw all of that mental energy from the planet and to keep it inside itself. Now, oftentimes children will learn how to entertain themselves because they don't have much interaction with other kids or with their parents. Children will learn to be quiet, not express themselves, because this might be dangerous in the family environment where they're growing up. They understand that if they express themselves, this is going to get some really bad reactions from their caretaker, so they learn how to contain themselves. If you had overprotective parents, you might have learned that you're not really safe or free to exist. You can't make your own choices. You can't do things for yourself. They won't let you. You can't grow up. They won't let you. You can't have your own personality. They won't let you. So you might associate having a social life or having other people in your life as loss of self. And you don't want to lose yourself. You're sick of that. You're sick of having experienced that for so long. If you had parents who were abusive or neglectful or addicts or whatever, well, they weren't really fully present in the loving, non-intrusive, non-judgmental way that you needed, and you might have come to the conclusion that interaction with other people is dangerous. So you want to go back to that space that you already know, you're familiar with, and that you've existed in, which is your mind. Oftentimes, people who end up isolating themselves within their minds, they suffer from maladaptive daydreaming. Again, guys, maladaptive daydreaming is a psychiatric condition that does not show up in the DSM-5. So in this video, I don't want to diagnose anyone. I don't want to do anything unethical, but I want to mention maladaptive daydreaming. Even though I'm not a psychologist, I am a psychoanalyst and a coach, because I know that for me, it was so incredibly painful and lonely to not understand why I couldn't connect to reality, and why I only had a social life in my mind, and why I could only face certain things in my mind. I had a very rich fantasy world that was a hell of a lot more exciting than reality. And I offer you guys this information because there was a dearth of information when I was looking for it 20 years ago. And when I finally started getting information on this, it was super liberating. And this is the impact I want to have on you who might have similar characteristics as I did, and who might be looking for a way of feeling like you can actually exist in the world and there's a space for you in the world. All right. Well, people who have these characteristics oftentimes have other characteristics. Oftentimes they are hypersensitive. They're hypersensitive to light, to noise, to hustle and bustle. They're hypersensitive to anything that's outside of their self-imposed isolation and rituals. So what this means is that when these people try to leave their house or leave their inner world, it's so much effort. It's so exhausting, and they don't know what to do, because you have to learn how to socialize. You don't know how to act in society. Society has rules. Society has all sorts of things that you're supposed to follow. If for whatever reason you were isolated because you didn't go to school, or you did but your parents didn't let you have any friends because after school you needed to scrub the house or take care of your 7 siblings, or whatever happened, if you suffered, if you couldn't have groups, support groups. What do you mean by support groups? Like if you were prohibited from seeing your own family, if you're prohibited from seeing people, it might be that you simply did not learn social skills. This was so in my case. I was really isolated. I was physically isolated for many years. I didn't have friends. I didn't have family. I didn't go to school. So now I understand why I didn't feel safe in the world, because I wasn't existing in the world and I had no social skills. So it's really exhausting if you don't have social skills to try to figure out what you're supposed to say, what you're supposed to do. And it's also exhausting because it's scary, because you know that you're different from other people. I knew when I started socializing that I was weird. People did see me as weird. I didn't pick up on social cues. I did act weird, And being hypersensitive to outside stimuli, you might want to give up before trying. People who have these characteristics oftentimes have extremely low self-esteem, because this is what happens when you look at the world and you think, my God, I was not made for that. I can't deal with that. I can't deal with the world in the way that other people do. You feel like you're defective. You're inadequate. You can't put your finger on it, but you're different from people. So oftentimes people with these characteristics have very, very, very low self-esteem. They tend to take everything personally, so they will interpret really normal actions that other people do as being some sort of personal attack. I remember I would go out in the street and I would see someone on the other side of the street, and they would have some sort of facial expression, and I would immediately conclude that they were judging me. They were seeing how defective I was, how wrong I was. Nowadays, I look back and I'm like, yeah, I'm probably not the center of everyone's world, and everyone in the street is not like thinking about me. They're probably thinking about the bills they have to pay, the problems they have to fix. But when you have social anxiety, you really do interpret everything as being against you, right? As proof that you're not good enough. And then you isolate yourself, and then you observe that you're isolated, you're even more isolated, and then you come to the conclusion that, yep, I really am inadequate, and there really is no space for me in the world. Now, amongst the people who do wish to socialize, but they think they're inadequate, I'm gonna talk about two groups, okay? In the first group, you have people who talk a lot of crap to themselves. They badmouth themselves. You're weird, you're inadequate, you're this, you're that. But these people, they have another voice that's like the sane voice, the wise voice. And this little wise voice tells them, listen, I know you believe this, but that's not true. You know that if you tried, with time, eventually you would learn how to socialize. So they're kind of in conflict with these two voices. One that tells them I'm inadequate, and the other one that's like, okay, but you're not, it's not impossible. You can learn. Other people learned. You can learn too. But there's another group of people here who they don't believe that they can learn. And they believe that their inadequacy is like a sentence. It's a life sentence. That you were born inadequate, you're going to die inadequate. You were born defective, you're going to die defective. And there is no way for you to be part of humanity, to be part of the human family, to be part of the world. Now, for these people, if you are one of these people, I want you to know that I felt like that for many years of my life. I was absolutely sure that I was inadequate and there was no way to exist in the world. I had a belief that I didn't have the right to exist. And I moved from absolutely believing that I didn't have the right to exist to this other group where it's like, wait a second, maybe I do have the right to exist. So I want you to know that if you're in this space where you just think there's no space for you in the world, it's going to require effort. I'm not going to lie to you. This is not comfortable, but it's totally worthwhile for you to at least start cultivating that one voice who is going to tell you, hold up now. Why do you think that it's impossible for you? Have there not been other people who had social anxiety who got cured? Have there not been other people who felt just the way that you feel and now are able to have a social life in a way that makes sense to them? Don't you agree that there are things in your life that you once thought were absolutely impossible, but that now you can do completely easily? In exactly the same way, it's important that if you're in this space where you believe that you really are different from the rest of humanity, it's important that you start cultivating a sane voice in your mind that tells you, hold up now, that kind of checks you, makes you think about your conclusions, about your beliefs. This is the first step for you to find proof, even if it goes against everything you feel you've experienced, that it's possible. It's possible for you to leave your inner world and to be part of humanity. I want you to know that it's possible. I used to be so bad when it came to this that when I was a teenager, I felt so unsafe in the world that I couldn't hold a conversation with another human being. Because I remember when I was like 16, 17 years old, my sisters would talk to me, and if they talked for more than 30 seconds, I would immediately start talking to an imaginary friend because I had imaginary friends. And my brain was not able to focus on reality. And they'd be like, TARY! And I'd be like, oh, okay. And then they start talking again, and I'd be like, yeah, so anyway, Patricia, I thought it was really weird the thing that you did. TARY! Oh, okay. So that's how bad I was. I would disconnect in the middle of a conversation and start talking with imaginary friends. And I'm telling you this story because I want you to know that I came a long, 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 long way. Nowadays, I know there's a space for me in the world, and I intend on filling that space, my friend. I intend on expanding and filling it more and more, and creating means for other people to also find their space in the world and fill it happily, joyfully. So I want you to know, don't believe that it's impossible. It's possible. It's possible. If you feel super lonely and disconnected inside, and you know that even though it's hard, having people, the right people in your life, can help you heal, I want you to take steps. And the first one is just convincing yourself that it's possible. All right. So now I'm going to give you some actual tips, some practical tips to get you started on this path. And there's a dog going crazy in the background, y'all. Y'all hearing that doggy? I don't know what's up. So the very first thing that I want you to know is that you should not try to be what other people are. One of the biggest mistakes I used to make is that I would look at popular people, people who were normal, people who were white and pretty, and other people seemed to like them, and they were popular. And I would look at them and I'd be like, oh, that must be what normality is like. Why can't I be like them? And every time I tried to talk to these people, they talked about crap that did not interest me. I thought they were superficial. I couldn't really say what I felt because being so profoundly introspective, I can chit-chat, but at some point I need to deepen the relationship. I cannot have superficial relationships where I don't deepen it. And I didn't understand that that was the specific type of relationship that I needed to have, deep relationships, because the superficial crap, I just felt like really insecure and I didn't know what to do. The worst thing you can do is look at normal, popular people and think that you're going to be like them. I mean, I'm not telling you you're not going to be like them, but you should definitely not take that as some sort of benchmark that you should achieve. Don't try to be like other people. That's the first thing. You're going to find your unique way of being schizoid or, oh damn it, how you say skiva in English now, I forgot. Avoidant. There we go. And it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to be someone else. And this is the second thing that I want you to take into consideration. If you're one of those people who doesn't know how to say no, then understand that you will never feel safe in the world until you learn how to. When you start socializing and making an effort to have a social life, do not aim at pleasing people. Don't aim at being a people pleaser. This is super serious. If you go out into the world and you try to forge a social life and you're doing it by emptying yourself of yourself and just saying yes, yes, yes to people and things and that you don't really want to say yes to, you're going to feel the same sensation of being suffocated, of being invaded, of loss of self that you felt when you were a kid. And this is just going to prove to you that the world is a horrible place and that you should probably exist in your fantasy world until it's time for death. Don't do this. Learn how to establish healthy limits so you don't get yourself into any situation where you feel the same sort of abuse and invasion that you felt that made you not want to socialize in the first place. Okie dokie. The other tip that I gave you is to, if you like me are someone who naturally bonds with rituals, like I created a whole life for me that I thought was going to be perfect, that basically was just inside my house and would involve no other people. And when I was in that condition, I was like, wow, this is super, super, super lonely. And the derealization started again. I was like, what the heck? What life have I created? Because this digital business thing, you don't really see physical people, right? And I realized that I needed people, and I needed to create a life where I could feel safe. So the way that I found people, okay, was through my rituals and through my routines. If you are like me and you bond with routines and rituals, like gaming, for example, and with pets, then I will suggest that you, like I said, don't try to be like the popular kid. I suggest that you find groups of people who are into the same stuff as you. Because if you think it's so much effort to socialize, it's not really a lot of effort when you're talking about something that you like. So, for example, if you like Jane Austen, find a group of people who love Jane Austen and go talk about Jane Austen. It'll be natural. You feel safe. If you like dance, find a group of people who like dance and talk about dance. It'll feel natural. It'll feel safe. So use your routines and your rituals to find groups of people that you have something in common with so you don't feel like a complete freaking alien. All right? Another thing, I suggest that you actively find people, choose people who are empathetic, people who don't have to understand you, but they have to understand that you have certain needs that might be different from other people. Now, I have a video on the channel, but it's in Portuguese, but I'm going to tell you more or less what I talk about in that video because it's really important. I have a video with the first friend that I had in my adult phase. When I was 27 years old, I asked the universe, hey man, I can work, I can have a boyfriend, I can leave the house, I feel safe now. Can't you send me a friend? I want to know what it's like to have a friend. And a month later, I met a girl named Priscilla, and we became best friends. And the thing that was really important about Priscilla is that she's so loving, and she's such an extrovert, like the opposite of me, that I explained to her my difficulties in a way that maybe for another person would have been really violent and really rude, and she didn't interpret it that way. I told her, Priscilla, listen, I hate leaving my routines. Every time you call me, I get so angry. I throw a tantrum because I don't want to answer the phone. When you send me a message, I'm like, damn it. I want to go back to studying. I want to go back to my routines. Why do people pull me away from my routines? I want you to know, Priscilla, that I need you to persist. I need you to insist and give me some time to get back to you, but please don't abandon me. I'm going to need you to understand that I'm going to push you away over and over and over again, but I will make an effort. I will make an effort to meet you halfway at some point. Priscilla did not understand because she is such an extrovert and she has friends and, it's easy for her, but she told me, okay, Tari, I don't have to understand, but if that's what you need, that's what we'll do. For the first 10 months of our relationship, I just kind of kept ignoring her and being really irritated every time she got in touch. And then I would calm down, and when I was feeling ready, I would get in touch with her and answer back. Now, it was always her that was getting in touch with me. She would call me, she would send me a message. I would never initiate it because it was not natural at all for me. And I remember after about 10 months of this, of her just insisting, one day I woke up and I thought about something. I don't remember what it was, but I remember that there came a thought to me like, I want to share this with Priscilla. And I remember that moment to this day because it was the first time that I actually got the phone and sent her a message for the first time after 10 months. And after that, we even celebrated that. And after that, it got easier. So this is what I mean by surround yourself by people who don't necessarily have to understand you, but they understand what will keep you safe and comfortable and what will help you come out of your protective shell. All right. So, particularly because since these people are so hypersensitive and they will only ever really get involved with people and in social situations where they feel completely safe. Most of us that have these tendencies, we're not really going to make any effort. If we know that we're going to be terrified or completely feeling self-conscious, or if things are going to be awkward, we're not going to make that effort. So it's really important that you find people who are compassionate and who can work with your unique characteristics. You can use the internet as a means of socializing if you feel safer that way. However, be warned that if you don't have social skills and you are kind of schizoid or avoidant, you are a target online because you cannot pick up on certain things that maybe someone else with more social skills would be able to pick up on and would be able to protect themselves from. So use the internet like I did for many years to start making contact with people, to start feeling safer that way, but understand that it has its limitations, particularly because if you are using the internet and you do have a tendency towards excessive daydreaming, you might actually fill in the blanks of what the other person tells you about themselves according to the fantasies and the daydreams that you have in your mind. So be extra careful if you do spend a lot of time in your inner world and you do use the internet for socializing, to understand that you might be having a relationship with someone in your head, with fantasies and desires that you've projected from your head, and that other people will pick up on the fact that you don't have social skills. So just be safe when you're doing things online, and also question the reality of what you think about the other person. understand that if you do want to learn how to socialize, particularly if you came from one of these environments, these family environments where your parents were overprotective, they were neglectful, they were abusive, or they were addicts, or they, for whatever reason they were not as available to you as you needed them to be, understand that you actually you have less neural connections in the areas of your brain that are associated with social skills and also processing emotions. What this means is that you're going to have to gain skills. Like I said before, I didn't go to school after a certain age. I had to get my GED later on, then go to college and all of that in my 20s. And because I was really isolated, I really I didn't have the social skills. So I didn't have the same number of neural connections as other people who had always had a social life. So it was super hard for me. So be patient with yourself as well. And understand that it's going to be hard. It requires making a sacrifice. The sacrifice is learning how to manage your needs alongside other people's needs, because once you have someone else involved in your life, you have to take into consideration what they want. It's going to make an effort in the sense that you're going to have to leave your comfort zone, leave your home, maybe. You're going to be in environments where you're going to have the need to like run away. I like, if you see me in social environments, I will be very extroverted nowadays. I will be very sociable, but you will notice that I will leave at many moments. I'll go to the bathroom, or I'll go someplace where I can be by myself because it's overwhelming for me. So understand that you're going to have to deal with the discomfort of this overwhelm, right? And as you do this, observe and make a list of the things that overwhelm you. And this is a really important list because you're going to be able to describe to all the people in your life that you are starting to open up to what your needs are exactly. So for example, let's say that you have a new friend and you have explained to your friend that you have schizoid or avoidant tendencies and that you have a certain threshold that you can take when it comes to socializing, and that after that you're completely drained and overwhelmed and you need to leave. Explain this to your friend and have an exit plan. So you can, for example, decide something like, hey, if we're in a conversation, you hear me say the word watermelon, it means that I need to leave. I am overwhelmed. So whatever it is, make a list of your needs, right? Like, hey, if you want to go out to a nightclub, it's totally not my thing, but I get it, it's your birthday, it's important to you. I will go, but I'll go for max an hour and a half. And also, I'm probably going to be in a corner somewhere in the dark just observing people, because this is sufficient for me to kind of absorb other people's energy and to feel that I'm being nurtured that way. Now, please, it's important for me that you don't keep like asking me, are you okay? Are you in the corner because you're okay? Is there something wrong? Do you want to drink? Come dance, come talk to us. Please understand that I need to be by myself. So whatever it is that you observe, make a list of things that overwhelm you, of things that go beyond your threshold, your tolerance threshold, and share this with your friend. If you go out, have an exit plan. Do not try to please people. So if you're going to someone's party or a dinner or whatever, tell them from the get-go, hey, it was really important to me to come to this dinner party. Thank you so much for inviting me, but I might have to leave a little bit earlier because I'm dealing with some issues. I hope you understand. Stay as long as it makes sense for you. And then just tell the person, hey, thank you so much, it was wonderful, but I have to go. Have an exit plan. Have your Uber ready. Go with your own car so you can leave. Do what you need to do to protect your energy. Also, observe which sort of actions you're used to doing, probably when you're alone, that calm you down. Many people have certain things that they resort to when they feel overwhelmed. And observe which types of actions, I don't know, maybe gaming or being online and chatting with someone or whatever it is that you need to do that might calm you down when you're overwhelmed. So for example, many times throughout the day, I'll start listening to an audiobook. I like to listen to audiobooks. I learn a lot that way, but specifically I like to listen to A Course in Miracles because it calms me down immediately. So whenever I'm stressed or I'm overwhelmed, oftentimes I'll go straight for A Course in Miracles and I'll calm myself down and I'll be able to deal with whatever. Another thing is that because people have different thresholds for how much socializing they can take, It might be that you don't need verbal communication with other people in order to feel that you're socializing, especially if you were raised by parents that kind of have an old school mentality about children. You know, children should be seen but not heard. Maybe you grew up in an environment where there wasn't a lot of verbal interaction, and that might be something that you're more used to. I know that for me, oftentimes I really need to leave the house because I'm a digital entrepreneur, so I work from home, and I'll go like to a coffee shop or something to work, and I don't actually need to talk to people. Sometimes I just gotta leave the house and observe people. Being in a nonverbal social situation, maybe it's not what you thought socializing for other people looks like, but it might be what nurtures you. Allow yourself to do things that make sense to you. Nonverbal social observation can be one of these things. And that is it. I think that's all I wanted to tell you guys. And what I want you to tell me, I want you to tell me in the comments if you identified with these schizoid or avoidant tendencies, if you fully understand that it requires effort, and really it's uncomfortable to learn how to socialize if you don't have these skills, but that deep down inside we benefit greatly from having people in our lives. And one of the, it's not just for, you know, feeling connected to reality, because once you're in isolation, you do feel reality isn't as real, but also to be allowed into someone else's world. Why? Because sometimes you're stuck in this cyclical thought system where you only tell yourself crap, and you don't have any other influence that's going to change your thought pattern. And socializing, having people in our lives, is a way of finding a way out of our inner labyrinth. Because oftentimes you don't find a resolution to something, but you just make a comment to a friend, and your friend that has a different worldview, different abilities, might just say something like, well, why don't you just blah, blah, blah? And all of a sudden that horrible pain that you've been suffering for God knows how long goes away, and you can see how simple certain things can be. So we need people really even to become our best selves. People serve as mirrors, and we can see our triggers, right? In relationships, we see our triggers. Our triggers point to wounds we have. When you're in isolation, you're not really that triggered. You try to control everything in your environment. And because you're not dealing with anything new, there aren't that many triggers. That doesn't mean they don't exist. It's just that they're not being activated because, you know, hobbies like a book isn't gonna have its own life in the sense that it's not like a person who's gonna talk back to you and have a certain worldview and stuff. It's a book. You can stop reading it whenever you want. You don't have to deal with it if you don't want to. Being with people, it heals us of a sort of existential loneliness that really robs life of meaning. Even if you are a great creator and you make amazing things, like you're a writer or you're a painter or whatever, if you have no one to share this with, you might feel like there isn't much point or meaning in anything, right? And being with people makes us feel as if there's a point to things, as if we're connected, as if there's a place for us, and as if we can actually be part of life. Because I know many of you feel like you're kind of sitting on the sidelines, kind of like observing life, but you're not part of it. And this might be because of self-isolation. When we have people in our lives, we all of a sudden feel like we're actually living life and not just waiting to die. So please let me know what you thought about the video. If you learned anything at all, if you had any insights, let me know where you're at in learning how to socialize, and let me know which of these tips stood out to you the most and that you want to try out. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to watch more videos like this, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it. It might be useful for someone. And if you're interested in more information about narcissistic parents and how to heal from the wounds that we're left over with when we were raised by narcissistic parents, then check the link in the description of this video. You can take a look at the Inner Mastery Lab. It's a program created specifically for children of narcissists to help you reconnect with your sense of self and therefore reconnect to life. Thank you so much and have a lovely day.